grab yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a glass of water, whatever, a drink. Grab yourself a drink, come take a seat, because you and I, we need to talk. Hey Merfam, it's Mermaid Minnow here to talk to you today about what I consider to be the dark side of mermaiding. So before we get started today, I do want to take a little bit of time to address with you the manatee in the room. And that is that I haven't posted a video here on YouTube since September of 2019, which was a while ago. So it's now June of 2020. So I want to take some time to talk to you a little bit about how that all plays into this, and also you can notice the video quality that I'm, showing you here today has changed a bit. All of this is going to tie in. Back in January of 2018, I got my very first mermaid tail, and it was a two-tails tail, and it was pink. And I got that tail and I was so excited because I had originally found mermaiding when I was scrolling through Instagram, and I found a person that I was following for their fashion, and I found them in a mermaid tail, and I was like, hold up, I can do this. Like, growing up, I was never ever a strong swimmer. I was pulled out of swim lessons actually when I was younger, so I never really fully learned how to do any sort of strokes. I have now kind of, worked on my breaststroke, but any other, swimming it's just not my forte. I grew up learning how to swim underwater, and I was never really like someone who believed that they were a mermaid, but rather for me, I was either like a shark or a dolphin swimming underwater. So I would still do the mermaid type swim, but for me it was like a marine animal essentially. So I wasn't that kind of person, but when I saw that photo, I was like, oh my god, this is something that I can do. Like, this is something that I'm passionate about, because being underwater for me is very, very healing, very, calming and therapeutic. And so I was really, really, really excited. So I got my first mermaid tail. It actually was a birthday gift. And I went swimming in it, and around that exact same time, around my first swim, I actually started a mermaid Instagram, because I had, as soon as I had found out about mermaiding, I did a lot of research into different tails. I found out about like all of the big companies, and I also started following a whole bunch of mermaids on Instagram. So I started my mermaid channel, or my mermaid Instagram, and my mermaid journey at the exact same time. So within, it was sometime in the beginning of January that all of this started. My first post on Instagram is actually January 16th, although I believe my tail came before that. So January 27th, I get a new mermaid tail. So not even a couple of weeks after starting my Instagram, it's not even a full month into me being a mermaid, I have two mermaid tails. And the reason why I got that at the time was because I really didn't feel like pink was my persona. I do have a couple of other pink tails. You can see a little sneak peek of a mandarin goby here, but it really never was my persona. And so I wanted something that would match that a little bit more, although I still hadn't gotten there yet. So I made a custom fin fun tail, and I loved that tail, but unfortunately when I was sizing it, I made it a little bit too big on the waist, and so it wasn't really all that swimmable. There was actually quite a significant amount of drag, which for a fin fun tail, you don't want that at all. Mertailor around this time actually had launched his first version of his fabric tails. He launched well, not his first version of the fabric tails. He had his they're now the guppy tails, but he had his original tails, but it was his first, with the fantasy, it was the sling tail on the fantasy monofin. So I bought that, and March 10th is when that arrived. So from January 16th to March 10th, I have 3 mermaid tails. So this is a span of less than a month. Which is insane when you think about it. A lot of mermaids talk about their journey, and they have a tail that they have used to death, and that's just not, I don't have any tails that are beaten, because well, my Mertailor is now, but at the time, I had gotten 3 tails in such a short span of time. around the same time, there was a couple of other things going on. The first thing was that I had joined as many mermaid groups as I could. So I had mentioned I followed a whole bunch of mermaids on Instagram, but then I joined a whole bunch of these Facebook groups too. And when I was in these Facebook groups, I learned a lot about the different tales. And unfortunately, and this is kind of what I'm trying to get at here, in the mermaid community, there is a lot of elitism. So there is sort of this tale maker company is great, whereas this one is not great. You know, your basic tale's a Fin Fun tale, and there is no shade to Fin Fun whatsoever because they make some of the most gorgeous tales, but it's considered like you can't be a professional, or you can't be like a beautiful, gorgeous mermaid, you know, who has a following if you're in Fin Fun tales, is how it felt. Things have been a little bit different in the mermaid community recently, but at that time back in 2018 I was feeling like, you know, I wasn't really fitting in because I was starting out this mermaid journey and I wanted to share this, you know, this mermaiding with people, and I was really excited about it, but I was also seeing that I wasn't, you know, I didn't have these nice mermaid tales. So, and I was seeing all of these other famous mermaids that had all of these gorgeous silicone tails, and I was like, I need one of those. And so sometime also in the month of March, I had bought my first full silicone mermaid tail. And it was, I'll pop a picture here on the screen. It was a Mertiller Fantasy silicone, so it had the fantasy fin here at the bottom, and it was another sling, but the sling, instead of fabric this time, was silicone. Now, mind you, I was not a strong swimmer still. I had swam in a mermaid tail not even like maybe 6, 7, 8 times. Like, it's not even, I couldn't even count it on both hands. It's not a full 10 times yet. And I had bought my first silicone tail. So you can believe that didn't go over very well. I had also kind of been confused about silicone sizing, and kind of got a little bit worried because I have, you know, a little bit different of a shape than your generic, and this was a generic size. I have large calves and large thighs, and so I sized up a little bit to accommodate for that, not thinking about the fact that my waist isn't a large, I mean, it is, I am a plus size mermaid, but it wasn't like this size that I was planning on, that I had, you know, sized up to. And so there was quite a significant, if you watch any videos of me at the time, there's quite a significant gap in the tail and for my back. So swimming in that tail caused a lot of drag, which is not a strong swimmer, was not a good thing. So unfortunately, I've only swam in that tail once, and it's just not a tail that I have anymore. So yeah, so it was a very short-lived tail, but you know, it was kind of a crazy thing because, again, it's not even 2 full months into my mermaid journey, and I had bought all of these tails, and a silicone tail. Fast forward a little bit as well, there was also, Finfolk had their fabric tail launch, and it wasn't their first launch, but it was their second summer launch, and I can't remember if that was in 2018 or 2019. It has been too long for me to remember at this point. I bet I could look back and find it, but you know, I had bought the tail, and like I had mentioned, I am a plus size mer, but I'm kind of this weird in between plus size, so I'm a little too big for your regular standard size going into the store finding something that fits, but I'm a little too small for full plus size. So like in Tord, I'm a size 0, but it's still a little large on me. So I was having a really hard time, and this is no shade to Finfolk. They have done a lot, and they're coming out with a new fabric tail release, and it's going to be completely different fabric, and so I'm actually excited about that. But the mermaid tails that they were producing at the time were not produced in-house, and so there was a lot of inconsistencies with their tails, and they've owned up to that at this point, and they've said that that was an issue, which is why they've moved their production to in-house. So I had bought a double XL Mandarin Goby. So this is the one you can see, the pink one pinking out here. So this guy here, I had bought a double XL, and it was such a small tail on me. It fits a little bit better now. I have lost some weight since when I had started mermaiding, but it is a very, very tight fit. And so I was feeling quite depressed about that, because I felt like I was too big to be a mermaid. And I was really struggling with my, you know, my body weight at the time. I've never really struggled with it too much, even though I am a little bit larger. I've never really like been concerned about that until I had this mermaid tail that I was so excited about. Like, I had gotten on and I was joined the pod squad. I had, you know, been there, watched the live stream, was one of the first people. People were hyped about this tail. It sold out so quickly and I had gotten it. And I was so excited for it. So you can imagine how difficult it was for me to get this tail and for it to be too small, even though I had sized it appropriately and it should have fit me. So that was really hard. So I, at the time, wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. So their fall release came out and I bought a Black Dahlia tail, which is their grayish bluish tail. And I had bought a triple XL because I was like, all right, I'll size up. If it's a little bit too big, then I'll just, you know, get someone to tailor it down for me. It's no big deal. The tail comes. It is huge. It is huge. It is way too big on me, and it is significantly bigger than the double XL Mandarin Goby. But I am now not fitting another mermaid tail. So I'm kind of like already this kind of struggle that I have in going into a store of is it going to be too big or is it going to be too small? I'm dealing with very expensive, very tails that have me really excited. So I, for quite some time, struggled. You can tell there was a big bout of time on my Instagram where I stopped posting, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that I didn't feel like I was the right mermaid, because I was consuming all of these other mermaids that have pretty polished, you know, they've been doing it for years, but you know, I wanted to be someone who, you know, felt like they fit in with the community, because I was really looking for not only like a place of self-care, which was my original, you know, intent for mermaiding, but also find a place of community where I can make friends. So I was feeling like I wasn't, even though I had made a friend at this point who I'm still really good friends with, I was feeling like I hadn't, I wasn't fitting in, you know. I wasn't the right mermaid. I wasn't really a mermaid, you know, and this is, looking back on it, it's kind of ridiculous, but from people I've talked to, I know that I'm not alone in feeling this way, and that I'm not the only one that's felt this way. So, you know, there was that time where I wasn't posting as much and I was really down on myself, and I wasn't swimming as much. And you know, I have a very stressful job. Part of my job is to answer a crisis line, and so my job is high crisis. So I was trying to use this as self-care, but it was sort of becoming self-torture. And it wasn't until I had found the Seattle Mermaid Pod and had gone to my first meetup, which was actually in September, that I started to feel more comfortable with who I was as a mermaid. So I remember going to the pod meetup, and I was so nervous. Like, I had actually just bought this full silicone tail, which I actually had convinced myself to buy it. I was like, I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna lose weight. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy it. Forget the losing weight thing. I want it, I'm just gonna buy it. So I essentially bought it. And because I just really wanted to, again, I wanted to have this beautiful mermaid aesthetic, and I felt like I needed a silicone tail to do that, partly because silicone tails are gorgeous. So I bought this tail, and this was sort of like me going to this meetup was sort of me, it was my second swim, but it was like me publicly debuting this tail. So I get there, and it's this really deep pool, and there are tons of mermaids there, and mermaids and merfolk of all types. We had mermaids with tails, we had mermaids with silicone tails, we had mermaids with fin folk, we had mermaids with mertailor, we had mermaids with fin fun, we had mermaids with handmade tails, like just sewn together, we had mermaids with just monofins, we had people in flippers. We had all different types of mer people who were just there to have a good time. And I felt so confident in myself just being there around people who weren't there to judge me for my tail. Like that wasn't it. I remember sinking down under the water and just seeing all of these people interacting of all different tail types, and I was just so excited to be there with these people, and I just felt so welcomed into the pod. So I started to feel that sense of community I felt I had wanted since I had started, and I had felt like I was lacking. So it wasn't until, so that happened in September, but it wasn't until Mermaid this year. And anyone who doesn't follow me on Instagram wouldn't know, but essentially Mermaid for me, I just post something every day for the month of Mermaid. Most of it's Mermaid related, some of it's just lifestyle, some of the things that are going on. So this Mermaid, as we all know, the state of the world, we had just entered quarantine 2 months prior, I think it was, a month prior where I'm at. And yeah, so it was, the last time I had swam in a mermaid tail was early March, late February. So I really didn't have that much swimming content. And so I had to come up with my own content, and I had to be really creative and learn how to, you know, do things as a mermaid in a way that I hadn't just like, these aren't things I was taking from other people, right? So a lot of my content, and I don't want to say I stole things from other people because I didn't, but remember, I had seen all of these other mers that had this beautiful polished, you know, everything, and I wanted to emulate that. I wanted to be like that, and so I was trying to do the same thing, but this was the first time that I really felt like I was creating content for myself. Like I was really excited to do what I was doing. I took a couple of photos in the bathtub. I had some land photos. I did a photo for shoot for Pride. I did all sorts of different shoots that I was just so proud of. And so it wasn't until then, until I had a lot of self-reflection and a lot of, you know, straining of my creativity, that I started to realize and started to kind of re-feel that same magic I did the first time I put on a mermaid tail. And so why I even wanted to share this story and why I wanted to talk about this today is because, like I said, I know I'm not the only person who's gone through this. I've spoken to other mers who've gone through the exact same situation, maybe not the exact same, but have felt the same way that I have, and that they have to buy the perfect tail, or they have to have the perfect look, or everything has to be beautiful and all that stuff. But I'm here to tell you today, from somebody who needed to hear this and still needs to hear this today, that you are beautiful and you are perfect for the mermaid that you are, or mer person that you are. There is nothing that you can do that would make you any more perfect than you already are. Rock your fin fun tail, rock your monofin, rock your swim flippers, rock whatever you are. You don't have a tail? That's fine. You could still be a mermaid. You don't have, you know, a silicone tail? That's fine. There are people killing out there as professional mermaids who do it in fabric tails. You do not need to have this. But the problem is, a lot of mermaids do this, you know, Instagram mer, the influencer type thing, where we all feel like we have to have all these beautiful things to be something. But we don't, right? Kids are going to believe in the magic that you give them so long as you believe in the magic. So as long as you believe in yourself, other people are going to believe in you too. You are good enough. You're more than enough. And I just want you to remember that, because I don't think anyone should have to deal with that. And unfortunately, there are people in the mermaid community who aren't in it for the best interest. They're not here because of the magic that we feel. They're in it for other reasons. But you don't need to be like them. There is no reason to be like them. And I'm not calling anyone out here. But, you know I see it all the time. I saw somebody in a mermaid group the other day, and I'm sorry if you're watching this video. I'm not trying to call you out and say anything mean, but just, again, listen to me here. Who said that they had finally felt like they had got enough mermaid gear to not be an imposter. And that hit me, because that's the exact same thing that I've been struggling with all the mermaid tails that I've had, the ones that I've sold because I don't use them. All of the mermaid tails, mermaid gear that I've had and accumulated and I purchased and, you know, traded for it, all that stuff. That never brought me the feeling of being a mermaid. Being a mermaid and being okay with what I had and believing in that magic is what brought me the feeling of being a mermaid. And so if you're there, if you're in that place, please take a moment, sit yourself down in the mirror, look at yourself, and tell yourself that you are gorgeous, you are worthy, and you deserve to be a mermaid. And there's nobody that can take that away from you except for you, okay? So no matter where you are in your life, you know, no matter what's going on in your life, even if you have people who are not supportive of you and in your dreams of being a mermaid, whatever that looks like, either that's a hobby or profession, do know that I think you're worth it. I do. You, who I've never met in my life, I think you're worth it, you know? And you need to think you're worth it, because I could say it until I'm blue in the face, but it's not until you truly believe it that there's going to be a change. So thanks for taking the time to sit down and talk with me. You know, I know this was kind of this is a long video. It's a hard thing to talk about. So I just want you all to remember that you can be you. Being true to you is what brings that mermaid magic. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me. I hope to be actually posting more often. I actually have some fun content planned, so I'm excited to start sharing that with you. I'm also on my Instagram. You can find me at Mermaid Minnow. There's no dots, no spaces, it's just one word. And if you're not also subscribed here on YouTube, please take that time to subscribe to me if you want to. If not, that's fine too. But I hope that you really did get something out of what I was talking about today, because it's something that I know I needed to hear, and I hope it's something that you heard as well, and you take it to heart, because you are beautiful for who you are. So with that, I'm gonna go. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye!